Let's address the following question. I have quite a few issues during Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I often feel as if I am not good enough, even if I am vastly better than my opponent. Pretty interesting. I also have a hard time with persisting, not mentally quitting. It's almost as if I don't want to try hard, and I am embarrassed of trying and failing. On a conscious level, I know these things are irrational, but when I spar, they inevitably show up. That is a very interesting question. I actually had practiced a bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think 9 years ago, and we used to get beat up when it was our birthday. Pretty funny days. I actually started again recently to some MMA class, so it is kind of fresh in my mind, lucky for you. First of all, and that will be relevant for anyone practicing with sleight of mouth right now, you want to start by defining what are the main critical terms in that comment right here, and separating all the main clues that can unveil the real deeper cause behind the symptom. So let's clarify those main things in your comment one by one. The last two phrases in that comment are the most interesting ones from my point of view, but let's address them one by one. Feel as not good enough. Obviously, it is appealing to a comparison. So the main question here is, you are comparing to what? Usually when people say that, they are comparing to something that happened in their past, that maybe in the past they have failed at something, or they have been seen as a failure in their past by a sibling, by their parents, by a school teacher. Whoever it was, there was a massive traumatic sense of failure, of I was not good enough back then, that now can replicate in all the other areas of their life. Whenever there is a challenge, oh, I won't be good enough anyway because in my past I tried hard and it was not good enough. So I felt blamed and I blamed myself. So to avoid that, let's not try too hard. So one thing to pinpoint is, for example, what in your past have you been seen as a loser into, and specifically by whom? Or like, who are you trying to impress when you try to perform, for example? The next phrase, hard time with persisting and not mentally quitting. I have skipped the not because, as you probably know, the unconscious mind does not understand negation. So when you say not mentally quitting, the only thing your mind is focusing on is actually mentally quitting. This one to me is not the most important part of your message, but I would attribute that to an internal dialogue, some self-sabotage, which is the symptom. Self-sabotage is the symptom, it is never the cause. But this one to me is just an echo of the self-sabotage you put yourself into. So it's more like an inner dialogue, some things you probably say to yourself even as you are sparring with your opponents. Maybe you have those thoughts in your head of, oh, well, he's getting the edge right now, or oh, I'm feeling a bit of fatigue, so better just quit because I'm probably not going to go up to the end of the 5 minutes round, so maybe better quitting. Those to me are just an inner dialogue. Then we get into the really juicy stuff, I think, which is about the not wanting to try too hard. We live in a hyper-competitive society, and even if no big trauma happened in your life, even if no big traumatic event where you have failed at something happened, just with the conditioning we all grow up with in our capitalistic society and in the school system where you have to be number one in the classroom, otherwise you are a piece of shit. We are just conditioned like this from school, and now with social media it is even worse. So one thing that might happen here is the mental challenge, the separation, the internal conflict with having to hurt others in order to shine, which is kind of what we are trained to do. We have to put others down to feel elevated in comparison, and if we don't put anyone down, we have trouble feeling worthy sometimes. There are some great lines in a book of self-compassion where the author says, for example, in this incredibly competitive society of ours, how many of us truly feel good about ourselves? It seems such a fleeting thing, feeling good, especially as we need to feel special and above average to feel worthy. To see ourselves positively, we tend to inflate our own egos and put others down so that we can feel good in comparison. But this strategy comes at a price. It holds us back from reaching our full potential. If you are continually judging and criticizing yourself while trying to be kind to others, you are drawing artificial boundaries and distinctions that only lead to feelings of separation and isolation. The reason I am outlining this is, I guess, probably that deep down at heart, you don't really want to hurt others. You don't really want to make people ashamed of losing in front of you. You don't want to break anyone or anyone's self-esteem. And that may draw a line with the actual efforts you would need to put into place to actually beat the opponents all the time, because you don't want to make them feel too bad either. Maybe if you have felt bad for being betrayed or being beaten in the past, or failing at something, maybe seeing your opponent struggling and failing is an echo of that could happen. Or in any case, in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or any kind of fighting sports setup, people have been choosing to be there. You're not inflicting pain or anything, you're not even inflicting damage, because you are not at the cause of this. Those people have chosen to be here, in that gym, in that dojo, on that ring. You're not destroying because they have made a conscious choice to be here. You're not forcing people to fight, they have chosen to fight. So if you damage them, if you break them, well, you're not at the cause of this, because they have chosen to be here anyway. And the last one, which from my intuition, I guess you fit more in this category. I could be wrong, but I think it is the main problem at hand here. It is on the embarrassed of trying and failing. Coming back to this hyper-competitive mindset we all grew up into, one thing that is happening many times in performance issues is, if I don't try too hard, then if I fail, I can't be blamed. I can't blame myself, because at least I didn't try too hard. So the fact of procrastinating or having some self-sabotage with not putting in too much effort, taking it easy, not too hard, that is also a consolation, an excuse, an unconscious excuse for, well, at least if I fail, I won't be a failure either, because I didn't really try. So I can extract myself from judgment. I can avoid feeling judged for being bad, for having lost the fight. I can avoid that feeling of being judged because I didn't really try too hard either, you know? And that language you use, embarrassed, trying and failing, that is, to me, my intuition, an echo of that, of at least I didn't really try. So if I don't try to really beat somebody, then if that person beats me, well, at the same time, it was not really a real fight for me anyway. I just took it easy. So it works like a self-esteem protection. It is protecting your self-esteem from your ego, from being beaten, because at least if you didn't try, you're not really the loser here. You're just like in the mid-range. I made a fight, but I didn't really fight either. So as a conclusion, we have 3 areas of research you may dig into yourself. The first one is, if you feel judged when you're not good enough, when you're not providing a great performance in the sparring, whatever, if you feel judged, investigate, by whom do I feel judged? Who am I trying to impress? Am I trying to just impress myself, or am I trying to impress the teacher? Am I trying to impress my dad who never believed in me? Am I trying to impress that girl who rejected me when I was 14 years old? That can happen too. Sometimes we have those deep unconscious blockages with one person one day who hurt you, whatever. The second one is the feeling bad for hurting others, whereas it is required. Like, we have to beat others to show how superior we are, but since you are a good person, you don't really want to hurt others either. And in that case, we have the reframing on, well, you're not really hurting anyone because those people chose to be here anyway. And the third one is that avoidance mechanism of, I don't really want to be seen as the loser anyway, even without any big trauma behind that. I just don't want to be seen as a loser. So to protect my self-esteem, I don't try too hard. I don't really want to try. One exercise that can summarize all of those problems and unveil any blockages is, you visualize what would be the worst possible case in your imagination if you fail, if you lose a fight. What is the worst possible thing that could happen? An injury, people laughing at you, what is it? The worst possible thing that could happen if you do fail, if you do provide maximum efforts and you still fail despite that, what is the worst case scenario in your mind as you think about it? And then traditional NLP exercise, you dissociate, you see yourself from a distance and maybe ask yourself, what does that appeal to? Does that appeal to an older event in my life that happened? Does that appeal to somebody else judging me? Maybe a parent, maybe a sibling, maybe a teacher. Maybe somebody else is judging you and you're putting that person on a pedestal, which means you're devaluing yourself compared to them, which is an ego problem, other things to think to talk about this. Or do I just don't want to beat others because I would feel bad if I was? Whatever it is, you can dissociate yourself, notice what it looks like from the outside, and then classic exercise, you replace your self-image in your imagination, you replace your self-image with the one of an expert. So you take in that field, you take Rickson Gracie or any like of the big names. Not even sure who right now is still in like, you know, those black and red belt masters, whoever it is right now, who is the most famous. You just take one really big expert in BJJ and you put them at your image instead of you, and you notice how they would react. How would they react with that injury, defeat, or beating opponents? Whatever is your issue, your deeper issue with that, how would that expert react or like handle that issue? And once you have a good grasp of how they would react, then you slip back into their body. You imagine you become themselves in that specific scenario you were scared of, you used to be afraid of. You jump into their body and mind, handling that situation themselves, and you notice, what does that change in yourself? Maybe your kinesthetics are going to be a bit different, maybe you're going to breathe differently. Whatever it is, some changes will happen. And since the fear of getting hurt and the fear of hurting others too is always a predominant in those dojos, in those gyms, specifically for people who are not really advanced yet, I will leave you with some advice from my colleague, Sergeant Hartman.
Let me see your real face.
Sir?
You got a real face? Ah! Got your real face. Now let me see your real face.
Ah!
Oh shit, you didn't convince me. Let me see your real face.
Whoa!
You don't scare me. What on it?
Sir, yes, sir!